So today I'm going to show you different kinds of stone. Most of it's going to be obsidian. I have stone from all over the United States. I've worked all different kinds. There's different hardnesses in it. Some are tough, some are riny, some are just hard. Obsidian is considered hard, but that means it's brittle. Yeah, go ahead.
Just as a background, you know he's an expert because he was contracted to make 400 arrows for danceable bulls, and they came back a couple weeks later and said they needed another 400.
Well, I don't like to brag on myself. My wife and I and another lady, we were contracted by Dancers with Wolves to make the bows, arrows, and quivers for their movie. So we made them 22 bows, quivers, and 800 arrows. And I can pass this around if you want to read it or whatever. Okay, so
Thank you.
this is, now I lost my train of thought. Okay, this here is pumpkin obsidian. Okay, this is mahogany, and there's another one that's a little lighter, not quite as much black, and they'll call that tiger stripe. Okay, so that's those. Now you'll have black obsidians, and you'll have, I don't know if this one here is, this one is called dacite. It's got a little bit more gray to it. And then there's black butters, there's smoke colors, there's somewhat clear, there's banded, there's striped, so there's a whole variety. Alright, so I'm going to show you with nothing but these tools right here that you can make an arrowhead. This is how they originally did it. Okay, first off, you need a stone like this that's workable to make your arrowhead. Here's one that I've pre-done. This is called a preform. Okay? Now, then all you need is a stone like this to be able to knock a flake off of here. Alright, the whole idea of this is you have to find a point on here that protrudes out and it's lower than the center plane of this piece of stone. But the problem with this one is this dives in. So if I struck this here, all this would do is break off right in here. It wouldn't work. So there's times that you have to prepare your own edge to be able to strike it, to get something off. And the idea is to take this big rock and not just drive flakes off, but just to make arrowheads, is what you want to do is you want to drive pieces off of this that are big enough you can use something else, but you want the biggest part of this to make like those big points. Okay? Alright, let's see if we can get a piece off of here. Alright, we've got a platform right here, and we've got a good striking form. So we'll take that and we'll grind this. Okay, the reason you grind it is to rough it up a little bit, but also to knock off any sharp edges. Alright, we're going to lay this like this. We're going to take this stone. This is called a percussion stone. If you see any of these laying up on a prairie, it wasn't not supposed to be there. A man hauled it up there, and it'll be beat up on the end. This is what this was used for. Okay, you hear that pop? That's the sound you want to hear. Okay, now that piece there is guarded. This here you could probably make a small arrowhead. There you could make an arrowhead out of this one. Alright. Now we drove that off of there, and you see we got rid of that crust off of there to get this flake here. Okay, now this flake here is big enough we could take this and we could work this into a knife blade or a scraper, or make it into a hand knife, you know, various other things we can make this into. But I want to show you something here that when we drove this off here, now This makes a sharp edge on here, okay? I'm going to take this. I'm going to grind that off except for this one little bitty sharp edge right here. Come here, young man. Okay, I want you to do something for me. I want you to stand right over here. I want you to hold on to this piece of leather. Turn this way, like this. Hold this up here just like this. And I'm going to hold it right over here. Now you pull it tight, because I'm going to take this sharp piece of stone and cut it off. Now you have a piece of brain tan deer. So that shows you how that little edge there is sharp, but it doesn't take much to knock it off. So that's why they took and ground it like this to get rid of that before they decided to make it into a point. Okay, I'm going to show you the process with this here just a little bit. Okay, you got various different sizes of stone. You got big ones and you got little ones, and all for different parts of it. Okay, now you see how I went around there and I knocked that edge off of there, all down this way. All right, that's called preparing an edge. And I'm going to take just a little bit more. Actually, I need to get a new one of these that's a little more grittier, more almost like this. So it kind of grips the stone better. Okay, now you see how I altered that edge. Okay, that's preparing an edge. Now, when I strike it this time, I'm going to drive this hump off of here. Okay, we're going to grind it. And now we're going to switch to a different tool. We're going to switch to an antler billet instead of the stone, because we use the stone to take off the big chunks and to do a little bit. Now we want to drive some longer flakes off of this. So let's see if we can do it. Okay, there I struck it too far in. That's what happens. You break it in half. Well, I guess we're not going to get that off of this. Let's take this piece here. Well, I'm not going to have very good luck today, I guess, with these tools. Okay, let's switch to what's called indirect percussion. Okay, indirect percussion, and that what I was doing there was direct percussion. This way it's more controlled. So I'll take this here.
Is that an antler under your stick as well?
Yeah, this is a piece of antler. You see how I drove those flakes off there? The alternate those and dry flakes off. Take it off. This I have names on. Mainly, I'm not practicing using these wrist tools. The reason is everybody's supposed to use copper tools to save time. Well, I ain't having much luck with the old original tools, so tell you what, now you know those are the old original tools, but you need to practice every day. So we're going to switch to the modern day. And we'll show you the difference. Okay, these are called copper boppers. They take the place of the horn and the rock. And these here like this are pressure flakers, where we would have normally used this deer hammer when we was going to flake this pressure-wise. Trying to think, now where did I? It should have some leather pads, but I don't know where they are. But anyway, I'll show you this. On the pressure flaking, you apply this antler to that and you press flakes off. And go over to this side.
Was this one before or both?
Actually, both of them can do it. In most cases, everybody has to learn how, because they have to be out on their own. You know that? They have to be on this a lot.
Is this a modern tool now or is this
Oh, this is hammer. No, use a modern one to take quite as much energy as that. And that's another reason over the years, I learned how to do this by doing with all the original tools. But after about 10 years, my joints and stuff got to hurting so bad that there's days I couldn't do it at all. All right, now I ground that off. Now I hit that a couple times where I've taken flakes off of both sides. I want you to look at that and be careful. I want you to see how sharp it is. Okay, and they also took them in pieces like that and shaped them with, and drove blades off like this. And these are called microblades. Okay, and most of these were used for skinning or scraping stuff, but they have a very fine, sharp edge on them. All right, now we're going to take I'm going to show you. Okay, this is that Keokuk. Now I'm going to show you the difference between the old and the modern. Okay, another thing that you concentrate on, okay, here's a platform here. There's also a ridge line right here. Okay, ridge lines are what you concentrate on. If you look at that piece, you'll see that zigzag edge on it, which is a serrated edge. Okay, one side there's a valley, and the other side there's a ridge. And valleys and ridges and valleys and ridges. So when you work on that, you always concentrate on the ridges and press the ridge away, create a valley, 2 more ridges. Okay, you understand? All right. Now we're going to see if we can drive a flake off of here.
Yeah. You got like
Okay, now you see the difference between the modern tool and the old tool. If I was practiced up with the old tool, I could do this. But I'm not in practice. Okay, now same thing. I'm going to pass this around. But you be real careful because all these edges, this right back here is the only place that it isn't sharp. So just like this, a lot of times when they were mass butchering animals, like when they had the jump over here, the buffalo jump that you have, okay, when they had mass butchering, if they had big hunks of stone, or sometimes they made these up ahead of time, they didn't set them always flake them. They left that edge on it. Because man, I can slice through hide and meat with this so much faster. And then when this edge is gone, then I can pressure flake that and make it into a usable knife or tool again. But you be real careful. Okay, this is a preform that I started. It's out of the black obsidian. So basically all I have to do is the pressure flaking. So I'm going to go ahead and finish pressure flaking this. So you're going to grind it. And this is a modern tool. It has a copper end in it, just like this one does here. And I have various ones that are various sizes. Okay, same thing here. We're going to take this now. We're going to finish it into a finished point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to pick out certain spots that I'm going to press flakes away. Hear that snap? Okay, see that flake? That will come off right out of there. That's the sound you want to make. You want to make the snap. Okay, one down that side, straighten it up. Now we're going to come over to this side. Now we're going to grind it. If we don't grind it, there'll be a sharp edge on it, and all it'll do is crush the stone. It won't whip it and pull it away. And there's pretty good lighting in here, but the best lighting is the sunlight. Okay, I'm going to pass this around real quick and then pass it back to me and I'll finish it. But you can see how sharp it made this edge compared to this one here that hasn't been done yet.
So the Plains Indians used what? How do they get their stones?
Okay, most of it, the best stuff, they mine it out of the ground just like we do coal and gold and everything else. The stuff that's down in the ground below frost is the best because it's underground, it has moisture in it. Once stone dries out, it becomes fairly tough. If it has moisture in it, it works much easier, okay? And of course, obsidian is volcanic rock, and a lot of that's found on top of the ground, but a lot of it's found under the ground because it's covered with ash and that stuff. So when we went to the glass buttes to get this, we dug down in the ground to get it out. All right, but I've been to Texas. I've picked up river rocks, rocks along the river, and it's called Pedernales, along the Pedernales River. Most of those are in cobbles, like this. You have to break those cobbles open to get to the stuff on the inside, okay? Then you have sheet stuff that's in the ground, like the church, like this here. Most of that lays in the ground in layers because that was made when this was the ocean. That was sedimentation. Some of this stuff you can get will have, like if you look close on here, there's little bitty plant life and little bitty sea creatures and stuff that's embedded into that stone. That tells you that it's a chert because it was made from sedimentation from the ocean. And over millions of years of pressure being on that formed it into stone. So there's stone that's formed by heat and pressure, and there's stones formed by heat. So those are the processes of forming it in. And some of it's better quality than others, depending on how close the silicate is in it. So that's why most stone is rated on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the most flexible, which is obsidian. It's like our glass we use on windows and that. It's the same thing, okay? And then 2 are most of your cherts. They're workable right out of the ground. 3 is it's workable, but it's a lot tougher. So that considers some of your cherts and some of your agates. When you start getting into a 4 or a 5, they're not workable at all. You have to heat treat them. And they heat treated their stone too, okay? Nowadays they use a kiln or whatever. Back then they dug a hole in the ground, built a fire in it, put some sand in it, put the pieces in there, covered it up with sand, built another fire on top, and that burned down the coals, covered it up, walked off and left it, come back a month later, dug it up, checked it. If it worked good, okay, it worked. If it didn't, they refired it. Tempered it again until it was ready. Okay? And that's how they took the difficult stuff and turned it in. And that was something that I learned over, because when I first started, I didn't have these big rocks. Wasn't able to find them. There wasn't a lot in our country in South Dakota. I walked around on the prairie and picked up pieces like this. And they were some of the toughest, the rhiniest stuff. You know, agates and that, petrified wood, and that type of stuff. And I mean, it's hard. But I was big and strong, and, you know, I powered through it. But I don't have that strength anymore. So, but anyway, then when it heat treated, I figured out in time why I was finding different colors of stone, but I couldn't find any big chunks that color, and this stuff just worked so great. Because when they heat treated it, some tones changed color. Okay? All right, now we'll go back and we'll finish this other side. I'll tell you, let's finish this side with the hammer, okay? It's pretty hard to hear. Okay. Okay. I pretty well got it ready now to be able to start putting the notches on it. So we'll do the bottom of it.
You're not demonstrating or talking, how long does it take you to turn out a point?
Well, I used to be able to do one about every 10 minutes. Not anymore. I used to be able to make a stone faster than I could cut one out of metal using a grinder. Okay, we'll let you look at this and then we're going to put the notches in it. Give me a minute to rest a little bit.
How do dances with wolves find you to make?
Well, I had a friend in Rapid City by the name of Gary Doc Herman. I used to be a reenactor of the Mountain Men. And I've always made the bows and arrows. I've made bows since I was probably 10 years old. But I didn't know how to do the flint knapper until I was about 25. I taught myself. I found a book that was published by Pope and Young about the last wild American Indian on the California coast of Ishi. And he taught them how to flint knap, and in their book they had the basics. And that's how I got started. And like I said, I went around and worked some of the toughest, grimiest stuff. When I started getting stone like this, I was like 7. I couldn't believe that there was rock. And so then, over the years, I've been to what we call nap-ins, other nappers across the country. And there's nappers across the country that are way more than me, better than I am. They do parallel flaking, and I mean, you see some of the finest points where one flake runs clear across to the other side, or runs from the side to the center on both sides, and they meet, you know. And there's not that there were originals like that, but not a lot of them, because there wasn't a lot of them that turned it into an art form, and most of those points were ceremonial points. You know, they weren't for everyday use. Most of my stuff that I make is for everyday use, because that book that I pass around, if you look through there, there's a picture in there, the first grizzly bear ever killed in the USSR with one of my bows and arrows with stone points. And I've had numerous guys that I've laid bows and arrows for, they've taken deer with. I've taken 7 wild turkeys with my bows and arrows. I've taken a wild hog and a number of deer, you know, with stone points. I've never had to shoot anything twice.
So what kind of antler do you use?
These are just deer antler,
Deer?
but they used antler, they used bone. A lot of times they take bone and form them. Instead of I did this, I drilled that, put it in there. But they take a flat stick and put a piece of bone on it and wrap rawhide on it, and attach it tight, and use that for a pressure flaker. You know, because bone is hard to get it soft. And that's what the material is, and it's just like these copper tools here. This has lead in it to give it some weight. So I don't have to hit it so hard versus this. You see how big this is compared to this, but these have the same weight. Okay? Versus this one is smaller, so it falls in about the category of this one. But you need to work, like I said, every day using these to stay in it. With the copper boppers, you can control them better, and there's a little more cushion, flexibility, you know. And I'll show you this. I'll take this. Okay. Here, I don't know, what, 3 weeks ago or better when you two docs were down? Dr. Lewis and Dr. Jacobson were down, and I made an arrowhead, and then I started on this piece. I knocked it off and started on this piece here. Okay, now you could take this just like this, and you could turn this into a scraper or a knife or whatever. All right, when they went and did this stuff, they went to what's called a quarry site, and that's where they got the big chunks of stone. Well, they didn't take these big chunks of stone and haul them back to their village. They sat there at that quarry site, and they knocked them off into pieces like this and like this to reduce them down, okay? And then they might even take a bunch of them and start them into this and preform them, you know, into something they want, okay? So now, I could carry 10 of these versus one of them for the same weight. So, and I could get versatile pile of different tools out of those pieces. All right, I'll just show you now. We were talking about the copper, and I was showing you with the antler, the trouble that I was having, control. Okay, see there's a ridge line there, there's a ridge line there, there's a bump there, and there's a bump there. But I need to set these up better, but these two are good enough to strike. Okay, you just want to catch the edge. You knock those flakes off like that. See how far that flake went? Went clear down to there. All right, now we'll take this next one. And that happened there. I hit it a little bit too far in. And it mostly just, it flaked it, but it mostly just crushed it. Okay, now we'll go along here. Okay, you see, you look at this. Those flakes I drew off, they went all the way down to here, so they flaked off that far, okay? So that makes this edge a little bit thinner. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go along here, and I'm going to take this, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see those little pieces that are coming off of that? What I'm doing is setting this edge up, and I've altered it. So I've dropped this edge here, so that gives me a platform. So now you see how thick this is down here? That makes it so I can drive these flakes off of this side. This is my platform up here. You see there's one right there, so I'll skip over that. We'll go to a little bit smaller one here because it's not real thick. Okay, see that flake? Come off right there. Another one there. Okay, just doing that right there makes that sharp enough that you could skin an animal, any animal with that you need. Okay, now we're ready to put the notches in, so what do you want? Side notches, corner notches, or bottom notches? The side notch makes a triangle shape, the corner notch makes a barb on the end, and the bottom notch is pretty much straight up with a straight stem. Myself, I like the side notch. Okay. Now we'll get these tools out. And if we're going to side notch it with antler, is what we do is we take a fine antler like this, and grind it down on one side. Kind of flatten it up. Like that. Okay, kind of like it should. Okay, we're going to do one side with the antler, we're going to do the other side with the nail. Here's where you're breaking your nut. And this goes back to what's called that alternate flaking. You go in here and you'll take little flakes, then you'll flip it over, and you'll come back in there. You right flakes on the other side, see how it started? A little bit of notch. And go back in, we'll do it again. Yeah, I'm going to get a hot spot there, so pretty much not going to get that to break out anymore. Let the antler wear down too hard. Well, the antler won't speak very good. You might start with that, then about half of the other one. All comes down to getting the handle to clip. If you want to clip, then you can't get the flake. Okay, there's a good notch. We're trying to how to do this, right? This is put it over. Go over here across and keep a look at it. See how we want it. Look it back over and see how close you are.
stone do you find it easier to work with? Obsidian, chert, knife river flint?
Well, the obsidian is the most easy because it's the easiest to fracture, but it's also the easiest to break. Okay, there's a finished arrow.
So is this, are there prayers associated with making arrowheads for the hunt, or is this just sort of a utilitarian task?
Well, it was an everyday thing.
Okay.
Because you had to have these tools to sustain your life. Okay? I remember guys talking about back in the 30s when the Dust Bowl, and even before they made the Cheyenne, the dam at here, the Cheyenne River and them were way lower. Guys went along those banks and found caches of arrowheads, hundreds in bundles that were tucked in the bank and stored away. So they made these, stored them away, and then they maybe moved to another area because they were constantly following the game. And when they come back, if they didn't have any extra stone with them, they had caches of points they could dig up, and they had them ready to use.
Interesting.
Okay?
What's a Clovis point?
Okay, that's what I was going to show you here next. Okay, you wanted to know about Clovis and Folsom points. Okay. The Folsom point was found in Folsom, Arizona. It was about this long, a little bit wider than my thumb, and it was fluted from the back clear to the front. Okay, and then the Clovis point was found in Clovis, New Mexico. And it was quite large and fluted anywhere from half to a quarter of the way. Okay, this point, when I leave today, is going to stay here with this museum. This is a Clovis point I made out of Rainy Buttes, which comes from New England, North Dakota. Okay, that's where this comes from. All right, but this is unfinished. Because in the process of fluting, I broke it. Now I'm going to pass it around because I repaired it with super glue. Amazing super glue. I used to have a shop in Faith that I made this stuff and I sold this stuff. So I thought one day when I broke a point or a blade I was working on, let's glue it back together and then let's see if it's working. Some of them would. When I glued it back together, I could work it, and it just run flake right across to where it was glued, just like it was never hurt. Okay? Some wouldn't, depending on the break. So I'm going to pass this around because I fluted it in both sides, but the problem with the fluting is when you flute a point, the first one is 50% chance you're going to break it in half. Because that's why you see when I was hitting that stone with the hammer, I had to hit it harder and I was out here towards the end. Anytime you hit out here on the end, you're going to probably break it. Because you're saying if you don't have this supported good enough where the shock wave goes into this, you cause what's called a ripple effect. And when that ripple effect goes through, then it snaps this in half. Or wherever the ripple is going to snap. You know, the weakest point of the stone. That's when it'll snap it in half. Okay, after you do the first flute, the second one, then you have to set it up again and create the platform, and then you're going to turn it over, and then you're going to strike this end, and you have to be precise, because if you aren't, in the same way, if you don't have it supported good, when this flute went off, it went off, but then it broke this in half, because I didn't have it supported good. So, when you're doing the second one, it goes from 50, the first one, to 85% is going to break on the second. And they broke a lot of them. But it's not, doesn't mean that they didn't still use them, because depending on where it broke, if it broke farther up here, they just made a shorter point. Just like that one that's made out of the blue glass. And yeah, I just made that out of the short one because I didn't have to worry about it breaking it down. Okay? But I don't even remember this myself. But I can tell you this, where it broke off, I don't remember if it's this way or it's this way, but it's at a little bit of a slant. It's not straight across. Okay, at the end, somebody round up some paper and a pencil and tear it into pieces so everybody can put their name on it, because they're going to draw for this arrowhead. It's going to belong to one of you. And we're done. The only thing I'm going to do left, I'm going to show you how to put it on an axle arrow. Okay, do you want to ask more questions about flint knapping, or you want me to do something else more about the flint knapping before we do the arrow?
You were talking about they can be made out of petrified wood. Is that a comfortable?
What's that?
She talked about making
Petrified wood, as long as it's completed to stone, as long as it's agatized.
Okay. And how do you
See,
know that?
huh?
How do you know if it's agatized?
Agatized,
I guess the reason I'm asking, when I got tiles of petrified wood, and
okay.
can you tell just by visually looking at it if it's agatized or not?
If it looks like this, then it's stone. If it still has the wood grain in it, then it's not long enough. It's still too much wood.
Okay.
When it's completed over that, then it's agate. And that's when you can work agatized wood or petrified wood.
I think you answered that, I think, I don't know very good. Did the tribes have one particular person that was a flint knapper? Or did they all?
No, they all had to learn how to do it. There might have been one or two that were actual masters,
Okay.
you know, much more superb at it. They'd be the ones that made the more superb points, you know, or the ceremonial type points, whatever, but they all had to learn how to do it.
Where do you locate your rocks to do all this?
You just have to, I've just went around to different parts of the country. You did research for what rocks or what areas. You know, I got books just like this book that's under here. This is made by guys that have studied actual artifacts and stuff. And there's places in here to tell you where to go get stone, and this is to identify points. You know, there's even some, right there's drills and awls and all different things. There's different colors that tells you what the stone is, and you can figure it tells you what state it's in, you know, and what it is. Right there. Here's one here. It's called Triple T. It comes out of California, and it's a type of obsidian. See? Okay, here's some of the obsidians. Here's a green sheen, here's a rainbow, here's a rainbow, there's another green. You know, so there's a variety of different colors of different stones. And like I say, there's another rainbow, some more there. You can see the variety of different colors.
Is any one color more valuable than the other?
No, not really. It's just preference. Some people like prettier stones. I mean, you get a real pretty stone, you know, and really a good working stone that really works nice. You get such a scar pattern on it that it's just beautiful. I mean, you can see every fracture and scar on it, you know, and it just really stands out. So, I mean, yeah, those type of stones like that are, yeah. You got that piece? Oh, they're looking at it. It's one of my arrow making tools, so we gotta have it back. Okay, Doc. Do you want to answer more questions about stones before we do an arrow? I don't know, how long have we been doing this? Over an hour already.
Hour, 5 minutes.
It's an hour. Well, we better go into the arrow if you want more questions about stones.
He says up in New England,
Okay, that Rainy Butte that comes from New England, that is an opalized wood. It's not petrified or agitated. It's opalized. And the colors in it can range from that color that I showed you, with more yellow streaks in it, and the yellow streaks in it with the pit between the growth lines is what the yellow streaks is. And it can be a maroon color. And the maroon is the best. The maroon is more solid, no inclusions in it, and whatever. It's pretty much all opalized. So where the brown has a little more inclusions and stuff in it, because of this, put your names in there. Okay, so this is an opalized wood. And the reason it's so heavy is because it has iron content in it. And that's another factor in what gives it its color, is iron that's in the soil. Okay. So, when we go to these nap-in rendezvous, we call them, that was another place to get stone, because there's guys coming from different parts of the country, and they bring stone from there in big chunks, pickup loads, to save, trade and sell. Okay? Most stone you paid anywhere from $1 to $5 a pound. That was 20 years ago. Well, it's more than that now. Rainy Buttes? No. Rainy Buttes, you traded by the bucket because of the weight. If I had to buy one piece of this that I needed to make this out of, it would probably cost me $200 just for the stone. One stone. So then Rainy Buttes, you traded by the bucket for another bucket of stone.
So that's just laying on the surface at the Rainy Butte.
Well, most of it's been farmed up.
Oh.
A friend of mine that used to rendezvous with me, him and his wife moved up there, and she was a pharmacist in the drugstore or whatever. And he worked for local ranchers and farmers or whatever. But anyway, when they do that, he'd go out on the field and find it, because when they farmed, they would farm up, every year they'd farm up some new stuff, you know. And I told him, try to give me the biggest pieces you can get, you know, because I made this, and then I was going to bring it, but I didn't. I have a lance point, and I put it on a lance. And the lance is almost 7 foot long because it's a buffalo lance for killing buffalo off the horse. At that point, it would have been 1 foot long, but it had, at the end, out on the end, it had like this brown in here, this inclusion. It went across here. What it was actually an old break. And it healed itself. And I've worked stuff that those never broke, and then others it wasn't healed enough, and it broke. And that's what happened to it when I was working that into the point, you know, working it down, thinning it and stuff. That point broke off, so I had to shorten it up. So I wound up with, I don't know, around a 10-inch long point instead of 12 inches long. I've made a number of points up to a foot long out of the obsidians and that stuff, where you can get a bigger stone. It takes a stone 3 times the size of what you want to end up. That's how much stone you work away. I used to take a stone like this, and I don't know what you do with that one piece that come off of
It's
here.
on the table right there, right straight down in front of you.
What I used to do is I used to take this, and I'd lay this in here like that, and then I'd take this and lay it off, and then I'd take and I'd strike another one off, and I'd lay it over here, and I'd strike another one off, and lay it over here. When I got done, this big rock was thinned down, wasn't very thick anymore, so then I'd take all those pieces and I'd put them back, and I'd put the rock back together. So it'd show them how it come apart. And see, you took all those You took all those bigger flakes off. You want these bigger flakes to turn into something else, but the main thing that you want when you're done is you want this big piece, when it's thinned down, into making something large. Either a large knife or a large point projectile.
So where would you strike that to break off another?
Next time,
Yes.
okay, I'd have to look it over here, but I could take a small one right off of here. There's a ridge line. And I might come over here and grind this a little bit and drive this off this way here, because I've got a tremendously big hump here that I've got to get to thin this down, okay? So, when you see these here, these are spots that this stone may break right in there, depending on how deep that goes. So that's everything that you have to consider, about when you're going to take this apart. You have to look and see if there's any intrusions in it, or fractures in it, and that type of thing. But yeah, you just take your time and you just look the rock over and you just work it. You see that actually lays back in there pretty good. See where that comes out. Okay. More questions about the rock?
Do you do classes?
Hmm?
Do you do classes?
I used to do when I had my shop. Many people. I used to brain tan hides. I had everybody, they wanted to come learn how to brain tan deer hides, make this soft, supple leather. But after they spent about 30 minutes watching me do it, they left and didn't come back, because I told them, you want to have the best aerobics exercise in the world? This is it. Because when you start in on a hide, you don't quit till it's done. When you brain the deer hide, is what you do is you take there's a piece of rawhide there, grab that piece of rawhide. This is a piece of deer hide. This is a deer hide after it's been fleshed and scraped down, ready to turn into leather. Okay? Now, you re-soak that up in the water, reconstitute it so it's back into soft rawhide. Then you mix you up animal brain matter with some water, and you merge that in there and keep merging it in there, and take it out, wring it out, and then put it back in. And you might do that for 8 hours. Okay? All right, now, when that's done, you'll feel it. You'll feel almost like it's soapy. It'll be real slippery and soapy. And that's because the oil that's in the brain that's penetrated the leather. And the leather will start to puff up. The hide will start to get thicker and get puffy. Okay? So then you take it and you wring all the moisture out of it you can. Then you put it back on the rack and stretch it. Okay? Then you have tools that you go in and you start at the centers. I made tools with stone on them like this and use like an oar. Because if you use just the wood, when you're squeezing the moisture out of it, it penetrates the wood so that it takes longer to do the hide. If you use the stone, it squeezes the moisture out, but then you can wipe it off. See, so then you can do the hide faster. But still, just an average hide that's not huge will take you 4 to 6 hours. But you will be non-stop working it. You'll do one side, then you'll turn it over, and you'll let it set for a little bit, and you'll do the other side, and the same thing. And another guy and I did it together, so one of us would take a deer antler, and we'd have it shaped off here so it was sharp on one side, and we'd go along on the edges. We'd go along here on the edges where the holes are out here where it's stretched that you can't get to when you're pushing it out. You can't get all the way out here and make them soft. So then what we do is we go along the edge and pull it like this. Well, the other guy was working the center. Okay? And we'd pull it. So that would get this outside soft too. Otherwise it would stay hard. So you'd lose more hide. So anyway, so then when that was done, it come out white, just like this tape. Okay, that's called white brain tan. But the problem with it is if that gets wet, it turns back to that rawhide. So that's why they smoked. They smoked it not only to give it a nice smell, but to finish it. So once this is smoked, it goes in, because when you're brain tanning this, there's no chemicals, so it's not being done chemically. What you're doing is you're pulling the fibers apart. You're forcing all the fibers apart, and the oil going in there from that brain and coating them and making this soft. Okay? All right. Now when I smoke it, smoke goes in here, and there's creosote in the smoke, and there's oil in the creosote. That goes in and coats all those little fibers with that oil and creosote. So now if this gets wet, I can throw this in the wash machine and wash it on lukewarm water, take it out, throw it in the dryer, and not hot heat, but just light heat or cool, and let it tumble in there with a tennis shoe or whatever. And when it comes out, it's just like this. And it might lose a little bit of the smoke smell, but it'll still be smoky, and it'll still stay soft. And after time, awareness, and clothes, if it starts to lose the smoke and it starts to get a little stiff, all I do is I take these off, and I work it like this with my hands to kind of break it again, and then I re-smoke it.
How do you smoke it?
Well, I had a building I made and put ropes in it and hung them up in there, because I would do 12, 14 hides at a time. But originally what they did is you take and you sewed it into a sack, okay, and then you sewed it into a sack and put one end up like this, and the bigger end at the bottom, you sewed an older piece on, you know, and you had this up above or put sticks in there, whatever, kind of hold open, put it over a smudge fire so smoke went up. A lot of times they just hung it up in the tops of the teeth and how the fire going in there, and all the smoke going up there eventually. And how you test it is you went out and found the thickest part on the edge, and you cut that open, and if that was smoked all the way through, the hide was smoked all the way through. Otherwise, if it still had some white in it, it needed to be smoked through. Okay. Who likes snakes? I'm going to show you two rattlesnakes. This one's tan. This was my wife killed this one all by herself. And I tanned it.
Say you tan a snake out.
That's a tan snake. I'm going to feel it. Feels just like leathers.
They don't have much of a brain though to rub into the.
Okay, now here's one that's just dry. Okay, and it's dried like this. It's just like paper. Okay, I sell a lot of these to guys that make bows like I do, and I put a lot of these on the backs of bows for decoration. They do make a very pretty decoration once you get them done and put them on the back. But this is just like paper if you want to feel that. Okay, that's bottom box. We need to get this area.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk to you about making arrows. All right, this is how you go about making arrows. You go out February, March when the sap is down, and you cut these shoots. You try to find them as straight as you can and without hardly any branches on them. Okay? And you can use ash, you can use plum, you can use choke cherry, you can use currant bush. These are mountain rose bush out of Black Hills, so they use rose bush. You can use willow. Pretty near any type will make an arrow shot. Okay? The Sioux really like Juneberry best, but they used a lot of others, because nowadays there's not a lot of Juneberry. Or dogwood, red willow. There's a lot of dogwood in Minnesota and eastern South Dakota. They could go there and get their dogwood. Okay, then you cut them green, saps down, you tied them into bundles like this. You hung them up to dry at the top of the teepee. All right, every week or so you take it down and retighten this bundle, because these will shrink. Okay, you retighten the bundle, and you keep doing it until they're dry, and that keeps them semi-straight. Okay, we're going to take one out of here. Okay, that'll keep them semi-straight. You can look down it, it's got a little bit of crook to it, but that's no problem. And then you can take these and you can bend it, yeah, straighten that up, bend that, straighten it. Okay, you look down, it's pretty much fairly straight. Okay, then you got to take all the bark off of it. Once you get all the bark off it, then it's going to look like this. You got all the bark off of it. It's semi-straight. Okay, you look down on it. Okay, now all this, in this bag, all these tools is what I use to make my arrow. My original arrow. Okay. Doc, give me your original arrow I made you.
The one you made me?
Yeah, the one I made you. Okay, this is one of my arrows that I make. This is made out of a choke cherry shoot. Okay. This is the cresting that's done with earth paint and hide glue mixed together. So when it's painted on, the hide glue helps it shrink and stay on the shaft.
What did you say, the hide glue and what?
Hide glue and earth paint. Okay? The black is nothing more than burnt charcoal. But the red is earth paint. And there's yellow and there's blue. Other colors they got from plant, like purples and greens. So they come from different plants. Yellow comes from bloodwood. Most of that's in eastern South Dakota. Okay. All right. This point is tied on with animal sinew. So are the feathers. And these are turkey tail feathers. And they're tied on with animal sinew. This has a bulb knock on it because they use the pinch method of shooting it. Pass this around and let you look at it. Now, this is what animal sinew, this is what you use to tie everything together with.
What kind of arrowhead is on it? What kind of stone is on the end here?
What color is
It's
it?
pink.
Let me see it.
Pinkish white.
That's called Burlington shirt. It comes from Missouri. Okay, this is what it looks like when you start. So then you'll take it and you'll go like this. And this is the back strap off of a deer loin. Silver tissue after you take the fat and everything off. The silver tissue that's on the back. And this is the tissue here that's coming on. That's that silver tissue. This is the sinew that's underneath it. Okay? Once you get this all done and you get to this, You can separate this out into strands of thread, however thick you want. They use this for sewing their clothes together. They used it for making bowstrings. They used it for fletching and tying their arrows together and stuff. So it had a tremendous amount of use. So here, we'll just take this strand right here. Okay, I broke that. It wasn't very good. Because most generally, you can take a hunk of this that big and you'll never break it. You see how that stretches? That stretches, it won't break. Okay, now I did 2 arrows yesterday. I'm going to pass them around here because I'm going to show you the tools that I've used. One of them I made with nothing but original stone tools. And the other one is half stone tools and half modern made. Okay? I want you to look at these 2 shafts, and when they're done, you tell me which one's which. And if you can't, I'll tell you which one's which. Okay? There's signs to both of these that will give you a clue that which one's which. Okay? First, I want Dr. Jake to pass one of his original arrows around to you. And I want you to look it over very closely. Look at the wood shaft, what's on it, how it was made.
She's wrong now. That's wrong.
Yeah, you all right. Lay the arrow to Okay, there's one modern day substitute, sandpaper. Here's the old original sanding box is sandstone. That's the same as this. Here's the modern day metal knife. That's one modern substitute. Two other modern substitutes. There's a small round file and a hacksaw blade. Okay? Now, this is called an arrow wrench, and this is called an arrow sizer. To put the shaft through to know what your starting size and your finish size. Here, I do have a little piece of hybrid. I'll pass this around, take your finger, put it on there, and then smell it.
How many arrows can you make in a day?
Well, I kind of do them in segments. Is what you do is you'll sit here and you'll do. There's a dozen arrows in here, so you'll sit here and I might get 5, 6 of them into that state you guys are looking. Okay. Then they're ready to be crested, which is your painting, and then you can start putting the feathers on them, and then you got to make the points, and then you start putting the points on them. But on average, if you just sit down and did one arrow, it takes at least 8 hours or better just to make one arrow. That's why they didn't shoot them and leave them, because of the amount of time it took to make them. The only time they left arrows was when they wanted to make a statement. I mean, you see some of the deals in certain massacres where the cavalry and left them for arrows. That was to make a statement. They didn't do that just to leave the arrows behind.
They wouldn't come out.
And another thing, okay, getting back to the tools in, okay, the rest of the tools I use are these right here. These are all tools that I've made from stone. They're shaft scrapers. This one here is a saw and a scraper and a shaft scraper. And I use these to make every one of my arrows. Every one of those original arrows is made with these stone tools. But the only thing that makes it go faster is this and this. Okay? Because I can shave the shaft down faster with this and then finish using the stone tool to keep it round and working it down. And then I can use the sandpaper to get a finer sand on it to make the shaft more smoother and not leave any lines. Okay. Hand me those 2 arrows when you've done it. Okay, where's that other one that wasn't done?
Yeah.
Is there another shaft I sent out that wasn't done?
These two here.
Yeah, done. All right. Now, can you tell me which one was which?
We thought the light colored one was,
Well,
They're
both
and,
light colored.
well, one is a little lighter than the
And why do you think that is?
other. Different what?
No, they're both the same width.
Oh, okay.
They're both mountain rose. Did you examine the shafts really closely? Did you feel them and see if which one was slicker? Okay. All right. This one here is the one done with all original tools. This one is done with the sand. Okay. That's why it looks so much shinier to you. Okay. But they both, at the end of being done, then they're what's called bone. You take a bone or an antler and you take these, because what's happened is on this one, it isn't as pronounced as it is on this one. Now, if you go back and look at this one, you'll see little lines on this. See little lines in that shaft? Those little lines are caused from these stones. The sandpaper doesn't leave that. Okay? So that's one way you can tell an actual original arrow over something that's substitute. But then they're both boned at the end to make them shiny and smooth. Okay? And also it presses the wood fiber back together to give this more spine, make it a stiffer shaft. Okay? And that one will be just a tad bit rougher than this one because I didn't take any oil into it. Is what I would normally do, I'd rub that with some grease and then really bone it. And then if you look at Dr. Jake's original arrow, how smooth that felt. And did you look at that and see the teeth marks in that shaft? You didn't see the teeth marks in that shaft?
Whose teeth? Whose teeth?
The warrior that owned it.
Really? Oh, he held them in his mouth.
Yes. Because when they were hunting buffalo or even going into war, you held the bow with 3 arrows with the points up like this. You had one in the bow and you had one in your tooth. Fire this one. grab this one, fire this one, grab this one, fire this one. And that's how it was done. And that's why you see teeth.
Interesting.
There can also be teeth marks on it. If they had, sometimes they use their teeth to straighten the shaft. Doc, hand me that one back, I'm sure. Bend over that part. Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to show you how this one here was done the modern way. So that's what this little file was for, to make the knock. Okay? All right. On the original, that's what this is for. This is the saw. This is to make the knock. Sometimes you have to cut it a little bit.
So is there significance in the length of those,
What's that?
is there significance in the length of those arrows?
Oh yeah, most arrows can range anywhere from 22 to 27 inches long, depending on the length of the bow. Bow average from 44 inches to 52 inches. And that was done by the man standing up, put his hand at his waist, would tell him the height of his bow that he would make.
How many arrows did you carry to put?
Well, if they're going to war, usually 20.5 on average. Look at, I started that already. It just takes more time to do it as this, but you can actually get that done, okay? And then the same thing when you want to make this bolt knock, get one of these boxes spread good and sharp. Most of these are starting to get dull. So I'm going to take this one off of here like this, and you come in here like this. See, now get that started. Okay, once you got that started, then you can go home here and you can shave the shaft. Okay, so you can shave that, and then you come back in with some shaft shavers. When you find anything like this on the curve, this is called a shaft shaver, or spoke shaver, is what it does. You go in here like this. See how it's cutting that bird? And it's making little ridges in there. See those little ridges? Okay, so then you come back with one of these that's more just a straight edge, and you go like this. And you keep rotating the shaft.
You had to do that the whole length of the shaft.
Yep, you do it the whole length. And I'll tell you the story about the arrow. Their belief was in making the arrow was that this is the base coming from the ground, so you made the arrow to shoot in the same direction it was growing. Okay? And after you have the shaft made, when you put feathers on it, you try to use predatory bird feathers or birds that had a very keen eye. Because their belief was with their feathers on my arrow will shoot more true to the mark. Okay? And then they also had a belief in this quiver here. Okay, if you look at these arrows here, you'll see little lines or grooves on it. Little lines or grooves down the shaft. There's usually 3 of them on it. Sometimes they painted them and sometimes they didn't. Some people thought, oh, they were blood grooves or to help keep the arrow straight. No, that's false. They represent lightning bolts. So, now, I have the bird feathers on there. When the predatory bird, he can swoop down on his prey with axe. Now I have those on my arrow. So now when it hits its target, it hits with the force of a lightning bolt. And that's the story of building the arrow, or their belief that they had for the power of the arrow. Okay, so that shows you how to get that started with the stone. Okay, now if you wanted to substitute and use the modern, okay, and you go there and you use this little file. And you keep filing that until you get to the depth you want. Okay, then we go to the modern knife, which was faster. So now we can come in here. Make this a little more bulb knock.
How does the width of the feathers affect?
What's that?
How does the width of the feathers?
I'm going to show you that too.
Okay.
Do different tribes have different distinctive marks on their arrows? I know Washington.
Yeah, each individual marked his own arrows with a different mark.
I know he's Washington Western was say when I pick up an arrow and I say this is from a certain tribe or
Well,
is that
now that there is, they all pretty much had a lot of the same style of arrow. The markings on it most generally determined what tribe it was from, but some tribes did have a different knock than others. The Sioux had 5 different styles of knocks. The Cheyenne had a specific knock, and the Sioux, like on that arrow of dots, is solid colors. The Northern Cheyenne were they're known as the painted people, so they had little belts of paint, different colors of paint on their arrows, and different tribes were, still just had solid, or they might only have one, or they might paint their arrow all red, or yellow, or green, or whatever. But something that you ought to remember, these people fought amongst each other, they warred on each other, and to the victor goes the spoils. And if I looked over here when I conquered him, if he had better stuff than mine, I took his. And I revamped to what that's like. So, they're a big deal to have on TV. Oh, this is Apache. Well, maybe, but it didn't say Apache shot it. Somebody else might have got it from it. And then see, you can use a knife like this to scrape. It's faster. So you can see, if I was sitting making this arrow with just strictly those stone tools, I might get 1 shaft done a day. So then that would be a long day. Okay, now once you've done that, see, then you can get it down, you work it all the way down to the point, and what you do is you get that, where did I put that? No, right here. You get it down where it go down, see, it won't go down in there, so I'd work it down until it would start into that hole. Then when it start into that hole good, then I'd take these sanding blocks, and then I'd start sanding it. I'd start sanding it like this, but I'd rough it up more. See, these don't really grip and take a lot off unless you have it, those little ridges, So anyway, that's how you do it. Or if you're going to do it the modern day, And then these two sanding blocks have grooves in them with the sandpaper. And the same thing, you put this on there. You see the sawdust coming off of this now with the sandpaper. See, it cuts it more. Okay, once you got all that done, of course, then you'll want to put the feathers on and you want to put the point on. And we'll show you the original way they put the point on. I'm not going to try to do it with stone because I'll probably wind up cutting my fingers. But this is how they would have done it even after they got metal to get that formed in there and not split the shaft. Okay? What you do is you come up here ways, and they usually did this when the shaft was either a little more green, or I should have soaked this in some water. Okay, you cut a notch on each side there, then you go down here a little ways and you make another incision. Just cut a little chip out, go across the other side. Cut a chip out of there. Okay, then you come back in here. Well, I don't know if I'm gonna get it or not. This is so dry, I should have. Doc, come and hold this shaft.
Put your finger.
What now?
Just hold this shaft. Take that and do that in there. Like I said, this is dry. You take that and pop this like this. Turn it the other way. And pop it again like that. Okay, you get those two sides loosened up, from one side to the other. Okay, then you take it come in here like this. You pop that out of there. You didn't cut it down far enough. Start reacting that, and then when you pull the shaft out, the point's going to stay in there. And you can look at that if you want to. It's tied on there.
So no knot, it just seals itself up.
What's that?
You didn't have to knot it.
No, you don't knot. You just wrap it on there. That's the whole difference between the modern day, because like the city you said I don't know. But anyway, now we're going to show you the feathers. Okay, two ways they did this. One was called stripping the quilt. Okay, we're going to straighten this just a little bit. And also, if you want to remember that you have right wing feathers and left wing feathers, and you don't intermix them on your arrows. You use all left wing on arrows, you use all right wing on arrows. On the same arrow. Okay. Now, these are primary wings, so you only get one side, but I use turkey tail feathers. You get two sides, but you still have a left and a right. Okay? All right. Now, here's how they did this.
This is a hawk, that's a hawk feather?
No, this is a turkey feather.
That one's a turkey, yeah, too.
Either. Okay, but it just, they don't know whatever. Okay, a couple things fine. One thing. Brain is down finer, so it's easier to attach, okay? All right, and the other way of doing it was called stripping the quilt. And this one here, these feathers, when you did it this way, they had to be glued down, okay? So you did this right here like this. You got this started? And you stripped it off the quilt. All right, now this one here, kind of kept the quilt on. This is what you would actually want this one to come down to, because it didn't always do this. You really don't want to use. Okay. Now this one here probably won't do this one, because this is the primary feather. This one's the secondary feather. But you can see the difference. Feel this quill. Well, this one's called the secondary. You know, this one too. Well, there's another good. You can actually get by on these without gluing them down. Usually they come off thinner. Lucky enough, these are actually coming off better than I thought. Pretty good trick. See, the thinner they are, that's what happens. The asphalt comes once. The asphalt comes once. Now you'll see how much more flimsier this is. There's still a little bit of the hard to but most generally, if they come off, they're flimsy like that. So then they're real flimsy, so then they have to be glued down. Or they'll break, you know.
Super glue.
Well, you can use super glue modern day. That's what I use on those feeder shackles. Otherwise, on the other ones, it's all high glue. Okay. Now, give me one of them feathers that I passed, I tore off, and I'll show you how they attach it. Okay. Nowadays, I just take them and put them on like this. Put on your first one, you just stick it on like that. Put a little dab of glue, let it set. Then get all three of them on it and then wrap your sinew on it. But the way they did it was to get a small piece of sinew, start with. This is a thin one. Okay, same thing, you start right here, but is what they did is they turned the feather up like this. You gave that a couple wraps, then you put your next one on, give it a wrap, put your next one on, give it a wrap. Once you got those 3 feathers wrapped on there, once you got those feathers wrapped on there, then you could adjust them. Make sure you had them where you wanted them to be, like that. And then they just did this, just tipped it over like this. Now you can finish adjusting it if you have to. Okay, let that set for a little while until that sinew dries. Then you take this end here. Of course, you'd have some of these feathers stripped off of here. Pull this down here where I wanted it. And I'd have me another piece of sinew, and I'd do the same thing here. I'd wrap these down, but I'd wrap these at position where I want these, you know, where I needed them to be. And then I'd wrap them tight with the sinew, and then I'd go back with another piece of sinew up here, and I'd wrap this all down here, but all 3 feathers would be on at the same time. But that way you could adjust them and space them apart where they needed to be. And that's how they originally put them on.
So without the arrows, without the feathers, they'd be worthless.
No, this arrow here is right plumb fine.
Okay.
You can shoot this arrow at a short distance.
Okay.
All feathers are is a rudder. Okay. As long as this is heavier, the front is heavier than the back, and it has momentum until it starts to drop. When it starts to drop, if there's no rudder, then it tumbles. Okay? The rudder keeps it from tumbling over, keeps it going at a straight line to an arc position.
Cindy said always 3?
Always 3 feathers?
Well, sometimes they do use 2, but most generally they use 3, depending on how many feathers they have, you know, and stuff. Okay, and then there's quivers and bows, and
You always carry,
Doc's got some original bows.
you always carry the quiver on your back.
Okay. I might have walked around like this, but now, if I was wearing the fancy one, I would walk around and I'd have this and turn around so they can see it on your back. That's how I would carry it. But now, if I was wearing the fancy one, and it was in camp, when we were parading through camp, then is what I would do, is this would come up here, and it'd go across both of my shoulders down, no, not up there, down on your shoulders on the other side too. Just a little bit so it holds on to your shoulders. And this would be pulled up about like that. Okay? So they would hang almost straight across, and I'd parade through camp that way and show off my equipment and stuff. Okay? Okay, now when we put it on, we're going to turn it around this way. Come here, dog. Okay. Put this arm through there, up over your head. Okay, now, I'm sitting on a horse, so I'm riding along and I want these arrows where I get to them, but I don't want them flopping up and down. So, what I do, I take that, and I take this, and I tie that together in the front. Just stick it through, because once you're, here. Once you're on the horse, and you're bent over, it's going to crimp that together. So now you'll pull it around here, so it's more across your body this way, like this. And you're sitting on the horse, so it'll kind of be pointed up that way. So you have the bow in your other hand. You have the bow in your hand over there, as you're right-handed. So now you can reach here and grab arrows and pull them out and slap it up on the bow and shoot. When you're riding this, it's not flopping all over. Because you can't reach back here. They show in the movies, they're reaching back or grabbing arrows. No, that just don't work. So that's how they would have carried it when they were either in battle or they were hunting buffalo. And they always put one in their teeth and usually had 2 or 3 sticking up there and one ready to go. Okay, this bow here is one of mine. This is made from Osage orange. It's also called bow dart or hedge apple. Okay, it's one of the best bow woods there is. But bows can be made out of anything, basically. In this country here, most of them are ash. And Doc will have a couple original ones we'll show you that are made of ash. This has an artificial sinew string on it, not a real string. It has rawhide under the back, but underneath the rawhide it has sinew backing to reinforce this bow and also to give it more power. This bow is a 65-pound test draw at 26 inches. 25 years ago when I made this shot 352 feet per second. It was faster than any compound that they had made at the time. Because the sinew on there, with the hide glue, when it dries, it acts like fiberglass. It really gives these wings snap. I mean, they just have tremendous snap. And then in the other quiver, there's one that's 48 inches long, and it's 65-pound test draw. And the same thing, it's sinew backed and rawhide backed. But that's the size of the bow the guy used with 24-inch arrows to kill the grizzly bear. Here's a picture when I was talking about carrying the quiver on your horse when we were going into battle or we were hunting. I was glad Doc had this because I wanted to show it.
You can even tell whether the individual is right-handed or left-handed.
Oh, really? Huh.
Both of his bows are left-handed men.
Really?
How do you tell?
Okay, on original bows, I don't do it on my bows. Okay, this bow is 48 inches long, probably the same as this one over here. It's the original one. You see, no, this one's about 46. Okay, so they can go anywhere from 44, but 46, 48, we're kind of in your average. All right, you look at this, you see there's 2 knock holes up here, just like there's 2 knock holes up here for the string. Okay, that's the bottom of the bow. Okay, this is hot. You see only 1 knot there? All right, on this bottom there's 2. On this top there's 2. Okay, this is how I keep this bow different. Somebody's going to say, well, this belongs in a museum. No, this is not a museum bow. This is not an original bow. This is made by me, and I'm not going to try to fake it. okay? But the reason this was done this way was not only to make it easier to string the bow when I was on horseback, because all the string was usually on here just like that. But all I had to do was grab this bow like this, put it against my leg while I was riding, and go like this, slide the string up and snap it. Only had to snap in one hole. Versus I got to get both of these in. Okay? And then another thing is what it did. Modern day bows today, we have what's called a window or a shelf to put your arrow in. And the reason that has that is to line the arrow with the center of your string down the bow. All right? This helped them do that. This, when that was done like that, this loop come in over here, so then it shifted the string to this side of the bow. And then right here, this bow has been bent. Right here, this has been bent. That's to set the string over a little farther. So my arrow is not at a cock, it's pretty much straight in line. Okay? That's how they didn't have to have a window, because they shot off the hand. That's why the arrows were put together with sinew to make it smooth. Where today they just glue them on and there's that ridge sticks up, and if you don't have a window or a glove, it digs a hole in your hand when you shoot it. Okay, now once that's done, all right, now the sinew string and the bow had a totally different effect too than my string today. That's an artificial sinew, because once this has been stretched, it's limited, it don't stretch no more. So my bow here has to be in perfect tiller. I can only draw it so far or it's going to break the bow. So if it's a 48-inch bow, theoretically, it can only be drawn 24 inches. That's half itself. Okay? So, but the problem thing was with real sinew string, okay, this sinew string, you see that? Stretch and contract. All right. When it was strung on this bow, even if this bow wasn't in perfect tiller, which means both limbs are bending equally, it will be strung. All right, now when I draw this bow to shoot, the string will stretch to a point that is stronger than the wood, so then it'll bend the wood. When the wood reaches the point that's stronger than the string will stretch some more, and vice versa until I get the full draw. And when I let it go, it's like a double whammy, because this is like a one big rubber band acting with the wood at the same time. So that you get a lot of power out of that bow when it slings that arrow. And these bows here, this is just a self bow. But they did take them and they sinew backed them, you know, too, to help stop breakage. But these bows here were common, pretty much all of them, but they always had 2 or 3 extras because breakage was high, because if they didn't maintain it, you know, just like this over time, see this is dried out. You know, if we would have kept this oiled and kept it in a certain temperature all the time, you know, from the wood drying out and getting brittle, this bow would still be shooting. But now, if you tried it, you'd break it. So it's a historical piece, but not to be shot.
And that isn't just one piece of sinew.
Yeah, and the sinew is these small pieces like this that are taken off in bundles like this, and it's wet down, and then when you get it wet down, you roll it like this. And when you roll it, this is called cordage or cording. Okay, you'll roll it to the right like that. Okay, and when it's wet, then it'll stay. All right, and I'll take another piece and I'll do the same thing until I get a piece long enough where I can take this like this and I can bend it over. But then when I bend it over, I go to the right and I come to the left. I go to the right and I come to the left. I go to the right, and I come to the left. And that braids it together, and when it's wet, see, then that locks it together so it doesn't come undone. All right. You can do this with this deer sinew, whatever, but then you'll have lots of splices. So if you look at this bowstring, every place you see this, 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 and there would have been another start of a splice. Okay? You'd splice. So when you get them a big long piece or whatever, then you fold that in half, and then the same thing. Then you push it to the right, come back to the left, right, left, come back, and then it cord it into this. You see how that's, you try to undo this, how it snaps back, because it's working against each other. And then this bow here, this is another one, but it's built a little different. You see it's way out of tiller. This limb's bending way more than this one. And there's no high area here in the center. So this bow bends in the middle from the ends clear through the middle. Where the other one only bent, this was the handle area, it only bent from here up on each side. There was no bending in there, okay? But this one here will bend all the way. So that's better in a sense, it's breakage to keep from breakage, but also a bow like this gives you a kick in your hand when you shoot it. Because this bends in here, and then when it snaps back, you feel that in your hand. So you feel a shock in your hand, and it was uncomfortable. And then you look at this, and it does have a little bit, they've cut a little bit out on each side to make this a little narrower in here for the window they needed to bring the string over here to line with the side. To line their arrow when they shoot.